Yes, hello tradies. Welcome to part 2 of our season preview, the middle 6 clubs from 2024 as we head into another new season, and football cannot come quickly enough as I welcome my co-host Mitchell.
Hello, Samuel. I saw you branching out beyond football over the weekend.
Where was that?
Back page of The Age this morning.
Did they put that on the back?
Mate, the first thing I do when I wake up at 6:30 every morning is I read the Herald Sun and The Age, check the young lines, and I saw your little mug on the back page with a live golf story.
Well, the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is get a coffee, walk diva.
I'm not a coffee. Have we discussed this? I don't have a single coffee a day.
I think that's I don't know whether to be applauding you or I don't know whether to be petrified. I don't know how you get through days without coffee because I literally get withdrawal headaches at like 11 a.m. if I haven't had a coffee.
Yeah, right.
My sister's the same. Like we're both. I think it's probably just force of habit.
Yeah.
Your mind probably gets used to the caffeine.
I went through a phase trying to have it, and I will have one occasionally, but
Right.
it gets to the point where if I have one or two, my head starts to sort of spin a bit.
Really?
It's on the other way. Yeah.
Do you drink tea?
No.
So you have no caffeine?
Water, cordial.
Hang on, cordial?
Yeah, I have a little cordial.
Are you
every now and
7?
Um,
What brand?
It's like a half sugar one.
Okay.
So it doesn't give me the full fix, but
Full whack.
just enough to sort of, and this is another weird thing. I don't like water out of a tap into a glass because I feel like I can taste like the dishwashing stuff. It needs to be in a bottle or out of a, with a little bit of cordial mixed in. Anyway,
That's actually hilarious.
how was your weekend? Because it looked like great fun. Not that you're not on social, so I didn't see any of your specific content,
Yep.
but it looked like great fun from what I saw on the coverage on 7.
Yep. I can't believe he snuck 7 in there. Chris Jones would be a happy man with you.
Well,
He will.
7 is the home of sport in this town. So
Stop.
Anything,
Stop. Jonesy, stop texting him before we record the pod. This is sickening.
Big launch day tomorrow too.
Yes, and I heard about that. Excited for you. Big year for you. Live was great. So second consecutive year that I've gone. It just gets bigger and better.
Mm-hmm.
I must say I got stopped a number of times by tradies listeners.
Right.
So thank you to everyone who listens in SA. And I just want to tell you a quick story from Saturday evening. So I went back to the hotel with my mate Alan, who I brought across after the golf, and then had dinner just in the hotel restaurant and headed basically like across the road from where the Sofitel is. I think it's called, is it Peel Street? Whatever the little,
Yep,
there's
Peel
like
Street.
a little, it's not an alleyway, it's like a street of like little bars, very Melbourne sort of style.
You'd be more Peel Street than Hindley Street, I reckon.
Not Hindley Street for me. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Anyway, I was having a drink with Alan, and I could sense this guy sitting outside with his friends staring at me. And we ended up having a bit of a staring contest, and then he came over, and he was a big guy, right?
Were you a bit intimidated?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'm intimidated by Diva, so like I am easily intimidated. And he came up to me, and the first thing he said was, "I'm glad you said tax was an A grader." And I was like, okay. And we talked for like 2 or 3 minutes about footy. And then he looked at me and he said, "You have not the slightest clue who I am, do you?" I was like, "No."
Mark Keane?
"Should I?" And he's like, "My name's Mark." And I was like,
Wow.
okay. Still nothing. Wasn't registering. And Alan, my mate, who's a West Coast fan, but a footy nuffy, like he didn't know either. And
So this just goes to my point that you only know the top 10 players at each club.
And he's like, "I play for Adelaide." And I was like, "No, you don't." Anyway, it was
Collingwood came for Mark Keane.
It was Mark Keane, right? And then he goes, me and Alan had a great laugh. He's like, "I played 21 games last year."
He said that.
And we both said, "No, you didn't." So there we are at 9 o'clock or whatever time it was, on our phones on AFL tables, standing at this bar with Mark Keane, completely oblivious.
That's great.
And we had like a good 10, 15-minute chat about the A-graders list, and he was there with his partner, who's also Irish, and we just talked about their journey and how he obviously started his career in Victoria, and now it's all.
Do you want to do a nuts and bolts on Mark
Oh,
Keane?
well, I think we probably should. We should get him on if we were ever going to have a first guest. But lovely guy, much taller than I anticipated him being.
Yep.
Sneaky giant.
So how? Because I know you're not great on heights with AFL players.
Will Setterfield, welcome.
Ben, who was the other one? Matt Rowell. You reckon he's a 194 inside?
What was he, like 181 or something? Anyway, how'd you rate my Irish accent? Was it all right?
Yeah, it was good.
Got there?
Well,
Okay.
I worked out when you said who it is. I was trying to think people with Adelaide accents. It sounded a bit Irish, so that's why I thought
sounded a bit
there's another
Irish.
Irish guy actually Carl Gallagher, there's another Irish guy on the Crows list. That's
Is he a potential Mitch's man?
He's got a bit of work to do.
Okay. All right, should we get straight into
Yep.
our middle six?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Here, thanks to 7-Eleven, of course. And we start with the Saints, who have a really interesting 2025 coming up. They lose a bit. So Josh Battle goes out. Now, I know that there will be some St Kilda fans that you can go both ways with Josh Battle, can't you? You know, there's people that think that he's a potential star, and there's others that think that he's a glorified role player. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but he did finish third in their best and fairest.
Yep.
So he's a loss. Brad Crouch goes out as well. Your man, Brad Crouch. You found the email that he got a new job before Brad did.
Everyone denied that he was retiring for 2 months.
Tim Membry and Seb Ross also go out as two guys that have been,
Membry played some good footy, a few good games last year.
Who's that?
Tim Membry.
Membry. Yeah, no, they're both, when you lose senior players, particularly when you're not at the top of the ladder, I think it's always going to have some sort of impact. And the only real in of note is Jack McRae, who I think is a really good pickup for them, and I think still has really good footy left. I'm not sure how big an impact he will have. They are a younger group than people think, and that's typified by the fact that their oldest players, Hill and Webster, are only 31.
Yeah.
So
they go from 10th oldest last year to 14th, so they do get younger.
10th oldest to 14th. Okay. Yep.
So they're the fifth youngest in the list.
Yeah. I always find the rankings difficult. Oldest, youngest between first
I'll just
and
spell it
18th.
out a bit easier.
Yeah, thanks.
The recruitment of the fringe guys doesn't overly excite me, so they've gone for some big dogs in recent times, and they haven't really landed them. So Jack McRae, what is he, 3 or 4 time All-Australian? He's played some really good footy for the Dogs, but the fact he wasn't getting a regular game there, I'm not sure if that says more about the Dogs or him. They haven't landed someone of note yet, and so they go after guys like Paddy Dow, who won't start the year with his illness battles. They go and get Jack Carroll at the end of last year, who was a fringe player at Carlton.
Yep.
When is the big dog going to arrive? So that is the question mark for me. These guys come in, they feel like they're 15 to 25 on your list. When are they going to bring in someone? They lose Battle. When are they going to get someone like that who comes in and can be a difference maker?
So, yeah, I think you're spot on, and I've got written here under the headline of Gap's star power.
Yeah.
And then next that's really the hunt for Andrew Brayshaw.
Yeah. What about old EU?
Yes. I don't know why. I don't know why my head is telling me that Davies Uniacke won't go to St Kilda.
Okay.
I don't think there's any facts behind it. It's just a gut feel thing.
And do you think Brayshaw's still alive for a St Kilda pursuit? Because everything I'm hearing is Freo are pretty confident.
Yeah. It sounds like he's going to stay at Freo.
Yeah.
But when we talk contracts this big, I always just wait because I feel like things can change. So, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Brayshaw. I'd be surprised if they got him, but there's an existing relationship between him and Ross Lyon, which helps. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at Tom de Koning.
Yes.
Who I read the story, I think it was from Cal Toomey earlier this week, that Carlton have offered a 7-year deal to stay.
Which is, again, we don't know the figures, but that's about ballpark, right?
Yeah,
6 or 7.
Cal wrote that it was worth between 7 and 8 million. So it's around the $1 million a year mark.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the Saints are going to be willing to offer 1.5.
He'll have to leave money on the table, won't he? Significant money if he's to stay at the Blues.
So, I just wouldn't be spending that money on Tom de Koning. Personally, that's just me for St Kilda. I love the idea of them going all in on, as you quite eloquently said, a big dog. But for me, de Koning's not the guy.
Yeah.
I actually think he's probably worth more to Carlton than he is to St Kilda, ironically, with their list build.
Because of Rowan Marshall and the fact they've already got a good ruckman?
Yeah, and a mobile ruckman too.
Yeah.
So when de Koning doesn't play for Carlton, they are an extremely different team because Pitnet is an extremely different ruckman.
Yeah.
Marshall is kind of already de Koning. Is that fair?
Yeah. The only reason I think Marshall and de Koning can work is they can both play forward.
Both play forward and both help out King.
Darcy and Jackson at the Dockers, the jury's still out on whether Jackson's actually a forward.
Yep. So just to go off the back of that, one of my trade predictions for the Saints this year is that they become, for the first time in a long time, more attractive to the star player who's thinking about leaving.
Why?
Well, thank you for asking. I'll now answer.
There's nothing I've seen that makes them more attractive than they were 12 or 18 months ago.
I think that they're younger good players can only get better, typified by the likes of Wangan and Miller.
Oh, I'm big on him.
And people forget, so they started 3-8 last year. And when you start 3-8, and we've talked about this on this pod a number of times, it puts pressure on you, not just from making the 8, but from the teams that, like St Kilda, are in that middle 6, trying to establish themselves as a club to come to. They can't be 3-8 again, and I don't think they will be. So I think if they turn that 3-8 to 7-4, or at worst 6-5, and they put themselves in the hunt for all those guys that, what were you saying last year? It's usually around the bye rounds that contracts start getting sort of solidified.
And don't forget, they beat Geelong, Sydney, and Carlton in the run home last year.
Did they? Yeah, you're right. I forget
all
that.
At Marvel.
Yep. So my prediction is whether they make the 8 or not, I think that there'll be more people like your Brayshaws, like your Davies Uniacks, like your De Konings, that if they're not signed at their clubs, will be more likely to look at St Kilda as a viable option rather than just a place to go and increase their bank account. Because so North Melbourne became that when they threw the kitchen sink at every single player in the land. Gaff,
still haven't landed one.
Martin, Heaney, Hanbury.
North still haven't landed a big dog outside of a fringe player.
Yeah, I agree. But my point is North were never attractive, really. Like, the back end of the Brad Scott days maybe when they were making prelims. But outside of that, they've been on the skids, they've been on the downhill slope.
Yeah.
St Kilda, I think, are climbing back up that mountain. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying they're going to land one. But what I'm saying is I think with Ross Lyon at the helm for a third year, I think with their younger, good players only getting better, they finished 12th last year with a percentage of 99. So that's pretty good. Their percentage has been rock solid. I think they get better.
Yeah, I like Wanganeen Miller, Mitch Owens, Darcy Wilson will show in the next 12 months what he's capable of. And Mateus Filippo, unfortunate and that injury. But there is a core group of young kids to look and work around there. And they have made a big focus of going to the draft. Some of their better players are still in that 29, 30, 31 age bracket. Wilkie, Steele, Sinclair, Marshall. My question is Hunter Clark becomes a free agent this year. Will we see him at his best? Then they've got guys in that middle tier like Dow, Burns, Stocker, Jack Higgins. Are they C graders or are they going to become B pluses? That's the question for me. Also got cash written down here. So the St Kilda war chest, which you raised last year, and it's only getting deeper. So they had 900 grand last year to throw at Josh Battle. He turned that down. They also had money at the time to go after other players, and others turned them down. They go to the draft and get 2 youngsters in Taru and Travalia. They're 150 grand each. So when you look at the difference in the money they had for Battle, instead they go and get these 2 kids at the draft. That is a massive gap. So the cash is going to be there. They're on the record saying they want to go after local talent. There's 2 in their area that are coming out of contract this year, and Finn Callahan and Miles Bergman, who I think they'll have a big play out as well as those free agents that you've mentioned. Wanganeen Miller is a must sign. He's out of contract this year. When it comes to attracting other guys, well, they've got a guy on their list right now that they need to prioritise, and clearly they are, but he's a massive one. Just a couple other things. The midfield speed. So it's always been a query on them. Steele, Ross last year, Crouch. So those guys, Ross and Crouch leave. Steele stays. They add McRae. So who's the burst guy? Liam Henry's more outside. Does he go inside in time? Does Wilson become the inside mid?
Yeah.
Just the midfield speed concerns me, and I can see why they went after Dow for that reason, but we're not going to see him much early in the first part of the year, and that's why I guess Zach Jones got another contract as well.
And why they look like a different team when Sinclair goes in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the key forward next to King. We've seen it from Cooper Sharman for 3 or 4 games. Can that be 10 or 12 this year? Can he really make that his own? The key back as well. So Battle goes, Wilkie's a star, Howard's injured, Cordy's depth. Does Caminiti go forward or back? Schoenmaker, I think, will be a player, but is he a lockdown? So many questions. I don't think they make the 8, though.
Okay, let's move on to the Bombers.
This is for the food on the go lunchtime offers at 7-Eleven. We've got a just quickly from Jack.
G'day, boys. Just quickly, spent my weekend going full nuff watching the Bombers pracky match versus the Dogs. And got very excited by the likes of Kako, Draper, El Hawali, who I think I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry, mate. Draper looks incredibly fit, which is, exciting, but also concerning because it is a contract year and that, slight alarm bells ringing there. Merritt good as per usual. Mitch labelling McKercher the next Merritt, essentially, is absolute rubbish by you. Complete bile. But moving forward, I think this is the direction the footy club needs to head in. I think the likes of Shield, Laverde, possibly Parrish, Gresham, although he's only new, need to go. They're not the right age demographic, and I just think while it is going to be a harsh couple of years, it is what needs to happen. Look what Hawthorn did. North are trying to do it. I think we could do it a bit better than them. And just go for youth. Play the young kids, blood them, and I think we could, really rise quite quickly if that was the case. Keen to hear your thoughts. Cheers, boys.
Thanks, Jack.
Spent all his time watching the Essendon match practice, but didn't get down to Arden Street and watch Colby McKercher tear up the North Intra Club by the sounds of it.
Sorry, was that an intra club? I'm not sure tearing up the North Intra Club
I was waiting for that.
is something. I got baited right into that. Like he put the hook in, and I got jeez.
But I can understand his frustration with the age demographic because I don't think Essendon have known over the last 10 years what they're doing. They've gone all in on getting guys, and they've gone, hey, no, it's time for the draft. Then we'll go for Mackay, Gresham, Dersma, Goldstein. Oh, no, it's time for the draft again. So I can understand the frustration from fans like Jack. It is a bit early to be tipping out of Gresham given he's only been there for 12 months.
Have you had a good look at their list?
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Last night I was on the couch at 11:30 with Baxter just sort of trawling through it.
Same. Although David, not Baxter. But no, I was also awake at 11:30 last night. Well done to us.
Yep.
Also, we should be more organised. So they lose Heppel, who retires. Hine goes. Stringer gets traded. They just bring in kids. Now, they could have kept Stringer, and they could have gone all in on getting Houston, right?
Yeah, they didn't really go after some big note players last year, did they?
But clearly Brad Scott and David Barham have convinced the rest of the club that, in the words of one of their premiership players, Damien Hardwick, they've got to take one step back to go 2 steps forward.
I was waiting for you to say there's 80% of the premiership list right here, right now.
No, I was going back to Richmond coach Damien Hardwick. I'm worried for them this year. I really think what they're doing is the right thing. But when you look purely at the numbers, so they lose Stringer, who kicked 42 goals last year, one behind their leading goal kicker in Langford. Third was Gresham, who kicked 19. They only had 2 debutants in 24, which really surprised me for a team like that. That just tells you about the mess that their list is, that they're as inexperienced as you like, and yet they're not blooding as many kids.
Well, just shows that in the wave of do we go to the draft, do we go for experience? They were let's go for experience last year, so they didn't go hard at the draft, but now they've decided to go back.
And they were 13th for points scored last year, and I don't see that improving. So I think they'll be bottom 4 for points scored.
Okay.
And, you love a comparison expectation. You said at the Tradies Awards last year, and I wrote it down, that Nate Cady was the next Charlie Curnow.
Yep.
So Charlie Curnow in his second year of AFL kicked 20 goals, 12. So I think if
that's par for Nate this year
to kick 20,
yeah,
I mean that's a lot of goals for a 19-year-old.
He'll play 20 games though.
He might. I mean, can I also get next week's Tats Lotto numbers now that we're doing certainties with predictions? I wasn't aware that you could tell the future.
Who's going to kick more goals this year, Nate Cady or Tex?
Well, Tex is an A grader, so I'll be backing in Tex. I just think that it's going to be a real tough year for Bombers fans.
We were saying the same about Hawthorn last year.
No, we weren't.
No, but Hawthorn were the second young. So
not like this though,
Essendon
mate.
Get younger,
but they had good talent coming through.
But what about
they had good
what
talent.
About these first round picks? Sardis into his 3rd year. Zach Reid 5th year.
Sardis into his 3rd year. Sardis been playing VFL.
Yeah, but he's a top 5 or 6 pick.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter when they haven't shown anything.
He'll be first 22 this year.
Maybe, but based on what?
Pre-season, what I've seen.
Ooh, bit of track watching.
Yes, I've been out there. Zach Reid 5th year. Nick Cox, Archie Perkins 5th year. Ben Hobbs 4th year.
There's just no one on that list excites me. No one. The people that you just mentioned.
Well,
none of those
Zach Reid excites me.
Well, based on what?
What I've seen, the glimpses when he's actually on the park.
Yeah, no.
Archie Perkins will play the Jake Stringer role this year as well, so he's going to play closer to home. Yeah, we can write off Essendon
They're top 10 of their best and fairest.
They've got more when it comes to the draft and the list build. They've got more talent on their list and higher end picks than Hawthorn did last year. And Hawthorn were a James Sicily post away from a prelim.
Yep, and had much better players.
They are, but
you're talking about numbers in a draft. I'm
Yeah.
talking about actual talent. So their best and fairest last year was grim reading. Merritt, Nick Martin came second. He had a really good year.
good player.
Durham, McGrath, Caldwell, Mackay, who had an awful second half of the season. Langford, Redmond, Stringer. Harrison Jones kicked 18 goals and finished 10th in their best and fairest.
Yeah, but he was sort of playing hybrid wing.
I think that they're in for a tough year.
I'm not saying Essendon's making the finals here, but
It sounds like
They
you're
should
saying
be.
that Nate
They
Cady's going
should
to kick
be.
60 and that they're going
there's
to make
no,
a prelim.
it's not another year of we're getting younger and we're just got to build for the future. Like they went and got Gresham, Dersma, Goldstein, and one other I'm forgetting.
Yeah, but those guys cost them next to nothing.
yeah, but
And they
they're
were,
on the age demographic, as Jack pointed out.
you can't go all kids though. They needed to supplement all the youngsters they had with a little bit of experience.
Yeah, well, they're all 26 to 27 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so gaps they're looking to fill. The key forward is the big one. So Peter Wright found
Gaps they're looking to fill everywhere. They need more depth in the midfield. They need another starting
do
midfielder.
they need more depth in the midfield?
Who's their starting midfield?
Merritt, Parrish when he's fit, Caldwell, Durham's gone in there, Sardis is coming on, Nick Martin.
We're getting with Sardis.
He's a top 5 pick.
It doesn't matter, Mitch, if they haven't shown anything.
He's into his 3rd year. It's go time now.
The guy couldn't get a game in the ones because he couldn't kick.
He's worked on it over summer.
He's worked on his kicking.
Yes.
Okay.
But the key forward, they need to be going after Ben King, throwing the kitchen sink at him
I agree.
in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I think they need, I don't mind their defence, I think a key forward and another gun midfielder to play next to Merritt could change things.
Yeah.
You throw a Davies Uniacke in there next to Merritt. You throw a Brayshaw in there next to Merritt, and they look like a different team.
Yeah. I just want to see Mackay, Ridley and Reid play one game together. They still haven't yet.
Yeah, well,
And
believe it when I see it.
Zach Merritt made no excuses during 2021 to see if this was his future and where he saw himself for the long term. Ben Rutten was coaching. They made the finals that year. In 21, they lost that
I'm trying to remember it.
COVID year. They lost to the
Bulldogs?
Bulldogs
Yep.
in Launceston.
Yeah, I remember. I was in hotel quarantine that day.
Yeah. Is he going to waste another year in his prime, or is his side going again? So since that finals campaign, they've missed the finals for the next 3 years. Zach Merritt hasn't got. He's got a lot of footy left in, but he hasn't got much left in his prime. He's got 2, 3, 4 years. Like, is he going to
How old
waste
is
another
Zach
year?
Merritt?
Is he 29, 30?
You have to be 30 this year, would you not? As you go to the you go to the computer and I go to the little handbook.
He turns 30 in October.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had
Well,
a-
it's almost too late for him to leave clubs now. And he's just reworked his contract.
Yeah.
He had an opportunity to go to Carlton a few years ago to play with his mate Cripps. Didn't work out. So I think it's almost too far gone for Zach. I think he's a Bomber for life now. Would be my guess.
Draper's a free agent. Got a decision to make. My prediction is that one drags on a little bit.
SA?
Well, yeah, he's spent a lot of time there. Crow's looking for a ruckman. Riley O'Brien got dropped last year.
I think my man Mark Keane would like him at the Crows.
Oh, was that mentioned?
It
in
wasn't. I
Peel Street?
just made that up.
And they've actually got 2 first rounders. So they did the deal last year to ship their 24 first round. Sorry, I'm getting myself confused. Anyway, they've got 2 first rounders this year.
Yep.
Do they go big and chase someone like your man,
Who's my man?
Harley?
I can't believe you're bringing this up.
No. Well, they've got 2 of all the Victorian
Wait,
clubs.
so just so that we're clear here, you think that Harley Reid's a chance to leave West Coast at the end of this year? Is that what you're saying?
He's got this year and one more to run on his contract.
That's not what I asked.
As you said, you can't. I don't have the Tats Lotto numbers. I can't work out what's going to happen.
Okay, I predict Essendon bottom 4. Anything from you, Dennis?
They're not playing finals, I don't think. But they
Hang on. That's a strong opinion. Careful, Cornsey will be ringing up. Mitch believes Essendon won't be playing finals. That's a staggering prediction from you. That's going out on a limb. That's putting your neck on the line. All right, let's move on to the Dockers. Fascinating, the Dockers. Basically, no one leaves. They actually didn't trade out anyone. I mean, Matt Taberner gets delisted, the only real name of note. And Bolton comes in. So when you look at the gaps on their list, it is difficult to find one. So they've already got a couple of stars in Brayshaw and Sarong who complement each other pretty well. And then you throw in Hayden Young, who might at the end of this year be their best player, potentially, if he plays like he did last year. Could even be on the A grade of whiteboard.
Needs to get his body right.
They've got 2-star ruckman, 2-star forwards, and they've got guns on each line in defence. Luke Ryan and Alex Pearce finished 7th and 8th in their best and fairest last year. That's a list with depth.
Yep.
When stars like that are not finishing in the top 5 of your BNF.
Alex Pearce was younger than I thought when I was doing this list.
How old is he?
He's only 29.
That's about what I thought he was. You thought he was like 32 or something?
31, yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of pressure on Justin Longmuir this year. If he coaches out the season, he goes past Chris Connolly and becomes the second longest serving coach behind Ross Lyon at Fremantle, which has sort of gone under the radar slightly, I reckon, his tenure at Freo. This is the definition of a list which is ready to go.
Yep.
You know, they've signposted from what they have done on the trade table and through the draft in the last 3 seasons that this is a team capable of going all the way. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll look at the Melbourne Premiership from 2021. Viney, Petrarca, Oliver, all 24 to 27. Then I'll look at the big 3, the Fremantle midfield right now, Sarong, Brayshaw, Young. They're all 24 to 26. So if I look at the core of your midfield of a Premiership build, it's there and it's ready to go. So I'm with you. I think there's no excuses now. They go and get Shea Bolton, who's a difference maker for them. If there's a query on that midfield, is it the burst? And Bolton, I think, will go in there and be able to add that. There's a couple of midfielders there, Neil Erasmus and Matt Johnson, who are first-round picks, who are sort of on the fringes a bit. So can one of those come in and jump in and take the opportunity by both hands? But yeah, I like their small forwards, Frederick and Switkowski. Fife and Walters won't have a big impact this year, but they were sort of just bit part players last year anyway.
Yep.
I wrote down here like Brandon Walker, 22, Nathan O'Driscoll, 22, Erasmus Johnson, Sam Sturt's 24 now. If 2 of those can grab an opportunity by both hands and just sort of fill this team out, they should be right where the conversation is. Got a question. So last year at the draft, we know what North Melbourne gave up to Richmond for that pick 23 or 24. They threw the kitchen sink at it. They got it. And North, as
traded
part of
next
that,
year's first pick, yep.
So Freo had pick 17. They pick up a Victorian kid in Murphy Reid, who a lot of other clubs said they would have snapped up at that pick had he have been there. But was it the right call to go for that, given what North Melbourne was willing to offer up for a pick a few bits later? Would Fremantle have been better in getting North Melbourne's future first rounder to arm them for Chad Warner and or Cozzy Pickett at the end of this year? Because right now, yes, they've got their first rounder. They've got the 26 first rounder and the 27 first rounder you'll be able to trade this year for the first time. But clubs are worried that it's going to be compromised given Tassie. So the first 5-10 could be severely compromised. So that first rounder in 27 for a club like Freo could end up being pick 25, pick 30. So that's just my query. Murphy Reid, that's no knock on him. I saw a bit of him on the weekend. The raps on him are fantastic, but for what they have on that list and the midfielders I've already mentioned, plus Erasmus and Johnson, was it the right mix, or do they need a difference maker like Chad Warner or Cozzy Pickett? So that's just one to track over the next 12 months.
Small aside on Tassie. You spent a bit of time there last week?
I did.
Did you get the hard hat on and sort of walk around Macquarie Point? And
I was actually on the phone to you in the lead up to that. You said you need to give me a date on when the stadium is going to be ready.
Yep, I want to. Yep.
So the team's coming in 28.
Maybe.
The stadium is meant to be 29.
Yep.
I don't see a world where they play a single game in that stadium in 29.
Yep.
So that's going to be a minimum 2 years if the team comes in 28. And from what I've putting all the pieces together, the stadium's going to take a long time to build. It's still going through the planning process. Needs to be ticked off by governments. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a while.
No, I want a date.
All right, I'll give you a date. Just plucking this, mid-2030 when the stadium's ready.
Okay.
So that's 2.5 years playing at games in Bellerive and Launceston.
I'll say that the Tasmanian Devils will play their first game at Macquarie Point Stadium in 2033.
Wow. That's 8 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, they're still decommissioning a sewage pipeline that runs through it.
Yeah.
They've still got to tick off 15 other things in the planning process before they then consider digging. They've got to build over water with part of it. They've got to
and the current model,
roof.
not exactly, but yeah.
Well, part of the 40% of the border of the stadium is around water.
Is it?
No, as in like the border of the stadium. So the roof doesn't go out over water.
Yeah.
But there's stuff that needs to, there's marine research that needs to be done. There's a whole gamut of things. Anyway, we somehow, because of me, just got onto Tassie from Freo. Let's
Alex
circle
Pearce
back.
actually re-signed with Tassie.
With Tassie? Oh, that's big. Shit.
With Freo in the off-season to 27.
Yep. So he could go to Tassie in 28.
If I'm Tassie, he's on my whiteboard.
Won't he be 53?
No, I just said he's 29 now.
Yeah, but Tassie's 20. No, he'll be too old.
He'll be 32 in their first year.
If it's 28. That's our age. That's old. Imagine us running around now.
My turning circle's not what it was.
What are you saying? You used to be able to turn on a dime, did you? I did hear you were quite crafty.
Cozzy? I'm going to keep talking about him.
I love that you keep talking
How
about
are his
him.
comments on the weekend in WA?
Yeah, wasn't.
I have to do my time at Melbourne.
Yeah, it didn't fill me with joy as a Melbourne supporter. If I was a Melbourne supporter.
They can't get both Warner and Pickett, and that's sort of what I was getting back to. Imagine they had North's future first at their disposal right now, which could be a top 5 pick.
Yep. They could win the flag this year, though, and all of it's largely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because, as we keep saying, they've got the list build to do so. Okay, I think it's top 4 or bust for Freo and Justin Longmuir. We move over to the Pies. Wow, Collingwood, what to make of them? Of course, premiers in 2023, couldn't get it going in 2024. They had a lot of injuries. The silver lining of that was they had 6 debutants last year. So at least it meant that the black and white supporters got to see some youngsters. They lose John Noble. Nathan Murphy finally retired, which is obviously a terrible story. Joe Richards, I think, might end up being one of the underrated guys that they lose to Port. They bring in Dan Houston in probably the biggest trade that we saw, Tim Membry and Harry Perryman. So all 3 of those blokes could play strong footy, which could make them instantly better. For me, looking forward, so you would think it's the last years for Pendlebury and Sidebottom.
Well, you'd think, but we said that 12 months ago.
Yeah, but this feels like it's different. The club's 2 game record holders. My gut feel is that they'll try to replenish on the run with those guys. They'll get a little bit of cash in the cap. So that's why they loom as a late swooper for an LDU or for a Brayshaw if they continue to be available towards the back end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they need to find an A-grade key forward if they can.
Yeah.
They're difficult to find. McStay clearly playing consistent footy would help. But, when was the last time the Collingwood Footy Club had a spearhead full forward?
Probably Travis Cloak.
It's probably Travis Cloak.
Yeah. I look at it and think, do they want a flag with Frampton and Myercheck as their keys?
Yeah. You think that they can continue to do that?
Nah, I think it'd be nice to have a Ben King. The average age is the elephant in the room here, isn't it? So I looked at their average age on their list right now. It's 26.4. And when Geelong won that flag in 2022 and they all dressed up as retirement home patrons, their average age was 25.5. So it's a year younger.
Yeah.
So Collingwood right now is a year older than that Geelong team or that Geelong list from 2022. They've got a great core 26 to 29, I think. But 24 and under is where the question marks are. And we've discussed this a stack of times. If it's not Nick Dacos, there's Harvey Harrison, Ed Allen, Reef McInnes, Finn McRae. Like there's not guys there that have established themselves yet. You'd argue, well, they haven't had a chance to because of the senior players. Well, this year it's time for these guys to try and bump out a Will Hoskin-Elliott, try and bump out a Steele Sidebottom, or even a Jamie Elliott out of the team. These guys need to be forcing their way in if Collingwood's to be more than a 2025 team, because we've all got queries about what the cliff looks like beyond 2025.
Yeah, but so the interesting thing is can they just do what Geelong and Sydney have been able to do? And every time we talk about, the cliff's coming, the cliff's coming, the cliff's coming, they keep just kind of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And they've managed to avoid the cliff so far. I think Collingwood ideally would like to do that. They bring over Charlie Gardner, who's been an expert along with Tom Harley in doing that at the Sydney Swans.
You look at what the Swans, they go and find Warner, Goulden and these guys. Geelong go and trade in Bowes, Bailey Smith, Ollie Henry. So these 22 to 24-year-olds.
Yep.
When Collingwood do it, they go and get 26 to 28-year-olds.
Yes.
Lockie Schultz is the other forgotten man as well. They gave up a first-round pick for him. He's not super young. So that is the query. The biggest hole for the list still for me they haven't filled. It's the second or the main key back to allow Darcy Moore to play as the interceptor.
Yeah.
Nathan Murphy was that guy. He's retired now. They're playing Reef McInnes there. He's only 193. Is it Frampton? Is it Charlie Dean? Who are these guys?
Howe's had to play that role as well.
And Howe's 35 this year in June. So they've gone to the draft a bit, but they've picked up kids in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
They haven't really addressed it yet, so that's still a watch for me.
Yep. I agree. Predictions?
Actually, this is a left field. I reckon because Collingwood don't have a first rounder this year, they traded it for Houston.
Yep.
This was like an 11:45 couch thought last night. Will the Pies be one of these clubs that comes out and rails against Tassie concessions early in 27? Because the Pies are going to need all the first round picks they can get. If we get a statement in the middle part of this year where it's Tassie will have the first 10 picks of 2027, I expect Collingwood to be one of those clubs that come out swinging on that, because that was just a...
No, it's a great point, but I mean, immediately my thought is, well, you can't complain about something you can't control. Like the AFL are going to do what they're going to have to do to get their new shiny toy, off the shelf. Collingwood have made their bet, so they've got to lie on it to a certain degree. But it'll be interesting to see how Houston fits in. So I mean, Dacos played a lot as a midfielder anyway, but he still went back when he needed to and played that quarterback role, if you like, almost.
Yeah.
Does he just play purely as a full-time midfielder this year? And Houston plays the halfback role?
Yeah, Dan Houston didn't play a lot of midfield minutes at the Power, did he?
No, but I'm saying they wouldn't think about playing both of them at halfback.
Well, Josh Dacos has gone to halfback as well. So
Yep.
I think, to answer your question, I think Nick's a mid-forward centre sort of guy.
Yep. That's why I think if they can find a way to attract another star mid at the end of 25, Dacos does his thing. Hopefully, DeGoey stays injury-free, touch wood.
Yeah.
And they get another, like you throw a Brayshaw in there.
Matt Rowell, they've met with
two-way runner. Yeah, I mean, Growl. Matt Growl. Okay, that's how he should be known as on the tradies now. If Growl can go there and add some grunt, I don't know where that came from. I think, for me, as much as they need a key forward, I think it's a midfield grunt to help out, to be that Tom Mitchell type player that he has been able to be.
And they're hoping Perryman can be a bit of that.
And they're hoping Perryman, and that the other question that I had written down was where does Perryman play? Because he played basically every position on the ground for GWS. He's a gap filler in the most prestigious of terms because he plays every role so well.
Yeah.
He's played as inside mid, he's played as tagger, he's played on the wing, he's played forward, he's played half back. It's probably a wing for me at Collingwood, but maybe they'll use him in a different role. I think they'll be knocking on the door.
Yeah, they should be playing finals.
Yeah.
It'll be a waste if they don't.
I agree. It'll be a waste if they don't. Speaking of wastes, let's move on to the Carlton Footy Club, who have had a very wasteful 2 years with their inconsistency at key moments. They lose Matt Kennedy, who goes to the Dogs. Caleb Marchbank is going to end up being a bigger loss than people think that he is, although he doesn't play heaps. They really liked him. Jack Martin, I still don't understand how they let that happen. He'll play good footy at Geelong. Matt Owies, I think, was fine to get something for him for the West Coast Eagles, and the only notable in really is Nick Haynes.
Yeah. And then Jagger Smith as a top 3 pick.
Yeah, you know me, I don't count draft picks.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? So I think Dan Houston, and he's basically admitted this in the off-season, if he had his ideal world, he'd be a Carlton player.
With his best mate, Jack Silvani.
Yeah. With this sort
Who's
of
a good in, by the way.
This all sort of emanated from Jack Silvani's wedding, this whole Houston to
Did it?
Victoria. This might be nuts and bolts in time.
Can we just can you put that on TikTok, please, Scotty? That's the hand movements that Mitch just did.
And we'll discuss this in the last Tradies Awards show last year. So Houston, what would command $750 to $850 a year? He's a dual All-Australian. Don't go for him. They trade up in the draft for Jagger Smith, who's going to cost them $150,000 this year. So it's a $600, $700,000 swing.
One's a proven player and the other one's a child.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
welcome to you, Jagger, by the way. I know you're a big tradies.
How many teams in finals contention and pushing for flags get top 3 picks? That only happens to the Bulldogs.
Good point.
With the Jamara Sam Darcy
Good point.
results they had.
Hasn't worked for the Dogs.
So is that money your TDK money, or does that free them up to spend it somewhere else?
Yeah. I mean, look, Mitch, you know my feelings on the Blues. They've got everything there.
Do they, though? My question is the one big hole.
Small forward.
Well, they've got the highest paid small forward in the comp this year, Zach Williams. They've got Jesse Motlop, who they've shown great faith in. Fantasia, Fogarty, Durden, Ashton Moyer, they've got high hopes for. Matt Cottrell, I think, will play a bit more forward this year. So they've got the guys there. They've moved on Matt Owies, who was a goal kicker, but maybe didn't provide everything.
Surplus to needs, yep.
In terms
You know
of
your biggest hole is?
It's the key back next to Wiedering.
Yep.
So
It's
Nick
been an
Haynes,
issue for them since Liam Jones left.
Nick Haynes is a third tall defender. Jack Silvani, then a look at down there. He's the third tall defender. And Mitch McGovern's a third tall defender.
Yeah, well, I think they'll play Silvani at centre half back as a second key.
Right.
I mean, Jack's very competitive. He's a good stopper. I actually think he's the perfect person for this role that they've got on their list. But I agree
Is he
with
big enough?
Yeah. Oh God, here comes my height prediction. Jack Silvani. He'd have to be 193, wouldn't he?
I was going to say about that. Let's have a look.
He's a little bit taller than me.
194.
Yeah, thank you. 194 is a good size. Good size. Centimetre smaller than Patrick Cripps.
Yeah.
And he plays tall too.
So what happens when they play on, Jed Walter and Ben King at the Suns? I'm just, thinking ahead.
So Ben King will get Wiedering, and Walter will be played on by Silvani.
Yeah.
What worries you there?
No, I think
Silvani
for me is the third tall defender.
I've watched Silvani tag Nat Fyfe out of a game, so not completely worried about Jed Walter, in due respect.
He's an emerging key forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of emerging players that never emerge. I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of hopes for people. I go from raw stats.
But I wrote down here, Cripps, Walsh, Mackay, Kerno, Wiedering, even TDK, throw into that premium 6 at the Blues. They're all 25 to 30.
Yeah, they're in the hitting
So
zone.
if it's not now, when is it?
Yeah. I'm not willing to say another headline about the Blues. Wasted that last year. If I hear one more Carlton person try to say that their season was ruined by injuries last year, I will end up in a straitjacket, like in the fetal position in a padded wall asylum.
Was that the theme at the Great Northern as you watched them concede the first 10 goals against Brisbane in the elimination final?
Goodness gracious me. I mean, yeah. I was there the night everything fell apart in the space of about 40 minutes. It was my birthday at GWS.
Oh, the GWS. Kerno hurts his ankle in the warm-up? Was that
Yeah,
that day?
and it was the game that I think the
or
official
early?
crowd was something like 8,500 and there would have been 1,500 people there. And I've never seen Carlton people celebrate harder halfway through the first quarter and at quarter time. And it all fell apart. And then, but was that round 18, I think? They were second on the ladder going into the game. And then people had the gall to turn around and say that their season was ruined by injuries when it just wasn't. So, yeah, I mean, Carlton should be playing off in a grand final this year. You know, that's the minimum for this footy club. It has to be the minimum. Grand finals are hard to make. You know, Lee Matthews always says you just got to get to preliminary final week because prelims are weird games, so you don't know what can happen, but you just got to get there. And, you know, they limped into a prelim against Brisbane and then 5 goals up and then the wheels fell off and then last year was an embarrassment. So, you know, they just need to be finishing top 2, getting to a prelim at the MCG and seeing what happens because they've got the star power to do it and I think they've got the depth to do it.
Just quickly. This is from Rick, all thanks to 7-Eleven's food on the go lunchtime offers.
Hey boys, massive Carlton fan here. I'm just wanting to hear your opinion on the new Chera deal, as in the tenure of the deal, and how much you think he would be getting per year on that deal. Because if I'm the Carlton front office, surely I'm waiting until mid-year or end of the year to revisit this, especially after his injury history of last year. So, what do you think he would be getting per year, and what do you think he'd be worth on the open market? Cheers, boys.
That's a good question, Rick. So he's on a 5-year extension. He was due to come out of contract this year. So essentially he's tied to the Blues for the next 6 years. It's a long investment given the injury troubles he's had in the last 12 to 18 months.
Turns 26 in October.
So he's signed for the next 6 years or next 6 seasons. I would think, given the Blues cap and the need to re-sign TDK and service the contracts of these big dogs, it would surprise me if that deal's worth any more than $650 a year over 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I would have said $750-ish.
Yeah,
but not more than that.
Because if it was a 4-year deal, I reckon you're pushing 7s. But I think you go less on average per year for longer tenure, which allows you to maybe top up a few others.
He just hasn't had a great career at Carlton, has he? He's played some really good games. I remember him being
there was 1 year where
best on ground or close to best on ground in one of the Richmond opening rounds. Might have even been his first game for Carlton. But I'm just having a quick look at his numbers. I mean, he was hampered by injury last year, only played the 13 games. But even previous to that, played all 22 games, only polled 2 Brownlow votes. You know, he wasn't brought in as a bit part player. He was brought in as a game breaker alongside, you know, Cripps and Walsh. Fremantle were devastated to lose him. So I think he's Connors, isn't he? Is he Connors' boy?
Yep.
Adam Cherry? Yep. So
Robbie D'Orazio.
Oh, it's Paul and Robbie. Yeah. Well, knowing them, you know, they probably think it's good to extend him at a time where he's not playing great footy.
Oh.
And for that reason, probably willing to take slightly less money than he would otherwise have thought he was worth.
Yeah.
So my gut feel, and just answering your question, Rick, is that I think it's probably one of those deals that both parties would be quietly happy with.
Yeah. Unless his body lets him down again, then Carlton will be like, what have we got here for the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's possible. And that's Kane's big criticism of the long-term deals.
Yeah.
That they should only go to the absolute rolled gold certainties. But, you know, as we've seen with the Petrarca and the Oliver stuff, there are no certainties in football as there are no certainties in life. Got a bit deep.
You've already given us your prediction, so that's good.
What's that they should play in a grand final?
Yeah.
No.
That'll go well on TikTok.
Will it? So let me be clear so I don't get misrepresented again. They should be playing off in a grand final. I'm not saying they will. Like how I said they should be premiership favourites. Remember that?
I do, yeah. Hawthorn?
Well, hang on. Yeah, no prediction on Carlton.
Top 6. It's probably sitting on the fence a bit.
Top 6. Hang on. Mitch's 2 predictions this episode is that Essendon probably won't play finals and Carlton should finish top 6. I mean, goodness gracious me.
I've been told opinions are, left for the people that played the game, so I've got to be a bit careful.
Yeah, apparently we're newsbreakers that shouldn't go into the opinion game. Kane obviously hasn't been watching my career because I haven't broken a story in about 6 years. So if I don't have opinions, what do I have?
Kane. He's in my head.
Kane's on the mind.
Carlton should be top 4. It's a waste if they don't finish top 4 this year. To use your term, if they don't play in a prelim, it's a waste with this list.
Yep.
It's built for now.
I agree.
We'll start Hawthorn with it just quickly
Ooh.
from Jackson.
Hey lads, just quickly, wanted to ask around Hawthorn's structure based on the inclusion of Battle and Barris, what the impact has on Sicily as to whether he goes forward, and then what would happen with your Gunstons, your Lewises and your Choles if Sicily goes forward. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, lads.
Okay, thanks, Jackson. I've asked this question several times, and as I think I said on the potty last week, I went down to watch Hawthorn train. So Sicily will just play that defensive quarterback role that he's been so good at. He'll go forward if he needs to.
Yeah. Hardwick's the one that goes forward this year, isn't
And
he?
Hardwick's the one who's been training as a permanent forward, so I think he's the one that does. They lose basically no one in the off-season, and they bring in Battle and Barras. It is the list build on paper of a team who are a kick away from a prelim. You know, they bring in a couple of stars in their eyes to fill the void that they had. Now, a good sign of a club, a good sign of a culture, a good sign of a list is when clubs come to you from other clubs and they improve. And that's what's happened at Hawthorn under Sam Mitchell.
I like that.
D'Ambrosio, Ginnivan, Chol, Gunston, Meek. You know, it bodes particularly well for your Battles and your Barasses, who have, in their own right, been really good players at St Kilda and the West Coast Eagles, respectively. Lewis hardly played last year. Will Day, obviously extremely interrupted with his injuries. Great to see him strutting his stuff at Geelong during the week. I think that they're going to be a club, unless the arse falls out of them and they really go backwards and have an off year, right, which can happen. I think that they're just going to be at the top of the list of attractiveness.
Yeah.
For players wanting to go there. I mean, remember when they were winning flags under Clarko and it was seen as almost the Clarko effect. Everyone wanted to go to Hawthorn, and they kept topping up. They kept going and getting all these players like your Gibsons and your Hales, and I'm forgetting a few, aren't I?
Burgoyne.
Yeah, Burgoynes that went there for all these.
Yep.
And ended up.
Did you mention Lake?
Of course, Brian Lake, arguably the most well-known one. I think that there's a chance that under Sam Mitchell, they could end up doing the same.
Oh, let's rip it off. I was going to get to this later, but let's do it now. You've mentioned the Sam Mitchell effect. Photographed on the weekend sitting next to Harley Reid at Tom Barris's wedding.
I talked about this last year. I said the Hawks.
For Harley?
Yep. I think that they're right in there. And I think that there have been, let's rip this off fully. I think that there have been serious discussions. Sorry, let me rephrase. There have been serious discussions at a high level at Hawthorn around offering a gigantic deal to Harley Reid at the end of this year.
Right.
And I think that they're right in the mix.
Okay. Was that smart business by Tom Barris to sit them next to each other?
Probably.
The last time Sam Mitchell flew to Perth, he came back with Tom Barris's commitment.
Yep.
The domino effect could be that he then gets the invite to Tom Barris's wedding and then goes for the next layer of Harley. Let's see where that one goes. It is crazy to think what 12 months does, because we sat in this studio 12 months previewing the Hawks season last year, we would have sat here and gone, they missed out on Radigalea, they missed out on Ben Mackay as the key pillars in defence. What they were able to do with Hardwick, Impey, Scrimshaw, with Frost out in that final series was incredible with that back line. I think those guys had really good September campaigns. They had a big crack at Jamara last year. I remember season launch, the Hawks were all in 1.2, 1.3 a year for Jamara Ugle-Hagan. And now their forward line, with Watson, Ginnivan, Moore, was able to stack up last year and be really attractive. Lewis is going to hurt them. My question on Marbior Chol is, if you look at his record, he goes to the Suns in 22 and kicks 43 goals. The next year he was VFL, kicked 10 goals. Last year kicks 37 goals. What does year 2 look like at the Hawks?
Oh, you think he's the horse that struggles to back up?
Well, let's see.
Okay.
I'm hoping he proves that theory wrong. But
what's the new look this year?
Yeah, I like it.
Cornrows.
Yep. Aerodynamic.
Big fan of that for Marbior.
And one free agent that might have slipped under the radar a bit is James Warple. I look at sometimes with players on the market in a Matt Rowell, who in terms of premium inside mids, he's in that conversation. I think Warple, best and fairest winner at 21 at Hawks, is just maybe a rung under. Still a very good player, and has probably had an underrated career in the last 12 months at the Hawks.
Yeah.
So the club's going after Raul. If he stays or picks another alternative, do they then switch their focus to a player like Warple?
Yeah, and
So I think this is what sometimes happens.
Yeah, and I think for me, it'll end up being more of a Hawthorn decision whether Warple stays or not, if that makes sense. Like, he's got an extremely close bond with the coach, who's an assistant coach under Alistair Clarkson, and the Kokoda Trail gave him his number 5. So like I know that they've got a great relationship. He bleeds golden brown. But it will be, if a Reid ends up needing to come in or they get another star midfielder, he might get squeezed out.
Yeah. If there's one question about the midfield, it's the speed. So you've got Warple, Nash, Newcombe.
Yep.
They're inside bulls. Will Day's not slow, but he's not Shea Bolton. So what do they do?
Sorry, Will.
And I'll leave you with one
Just
question.
calling you slow.
Who did Luke Davis-Uniacke support growing up?
Oh, no. Was it, can I lock in a Hawthorn, Eddie?
Correct.
Unbelievable.
They won't be able to get older you and Harley, but there's just one to ponder because I think the midfield speed is just one to keep an eye on this year.
Hey, just on the tradies height game, which is sort of started out of nowhere, Connor Nash, how tall do you think?
194?
198.
Yeah, right. Shit.
He's 3 centimetres taller than Patrick Cripps.
Should we, instead of talking about the Cripps and the Bontempellis of the midfielders, should it be the Connor Nash?
Well, I watched him at training and I just thought, that man is a giant. Who's
Took a lot out of this Hawks training session.
Well, I took my binoculars. Can I just read out the top 10 of Hawthorn's best and fairest last year?
Yep. When do I get my season guide, by the way? You're getting a lot of use out of that early. I haven't seen mine yet.
You haven't got yours over at 7?
Not yet.
Well, I just thought, given that you're in
tomorrow
cahoots with the AFL, that you would have got the first few off the... Jonesy, Chris Jones ahead of sport at 7. If you're listening, Mitch is not happy with...
I've got my laptop. It's all good.
Mitch isn't happy with not getting a season guide to it. If you could sort that out, please. This is the most working class best and fairest list I've heard. In order: Newcombe, Moore, Impey, Warple, Hardwick, McDonald, Amon, Scrimshaw, Ginnivan, D'Ambrosio. There's a lot of raw training grit on that list.
How many of those guys are first rounders?
Oh, you love this. Newcombe isn't. Moore wasn't. Impey wasn't. Warple wasn't. Hardwick wasn't. McDonald?
No.
Wasn't. Amon wasn't. Scrimshaw was.
Yep.
Ginnivan wasn't. D'Ambrosio wasn't. One?
Yeah,
maybe.
That's pretty funny.
Maybe 2.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
Amon picked 68 back in 2013 at the Power.
Was he?
Yeah.
Why did I have a feeling that Amon was a high pick?
That's a nuts and bolts I want to look at this year because when everyone was leaving the Hawks and they were going younger, he was the one that sort of
stuck around,
turned the tide. Yeah.
Yep. 3 debutants for the Hawks: Nick Watson, who there are high hopes on down there at Waverley; Cole Shadir, who we know is going to miss a little bit of time; and Ethan Phillips as well, who just played the 1 game. So 3 debutants. Hawks, can they win it?
Yep.
Yeah, I think they can too.
Yep, they get better than last year.
I think they can too. Anything to leave us with on part 2 of the season previews?
I had a few messages about your ponytail being chopped.
Yes. And?
How was the 9 promo shoot as a result of that? Because clearly you would have kept it as long as you could have.
9 promo shoot was excellent. Had a fantastic time. Looking forward to seeing what transpires from it, promo-wise. I haven't had one person, one in my life, say that they missed the ponytail.
No.
As in,
so they didn't miss it. They just acknowledged that it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the overwhelming feedback has been, your hair looks so good now. What were you doing for the last 6 months? Which, it's a backhanded compliment if ever I've heard one.
You can see all that at Tradies Podcast, Instagram and TikTok. You can watch Sam's growth week by week.
We'll leave it there. Thanks, Tradies. We'll see you next week for part 3 of the season preview. And then finally, hopefully, there's some footy to actually talk about.